It's extraordinary to think that humans can travel into space, yet there's still much to discover here on Earth. For 10 years, hundreds of scientists from all over the world have been exploring the undiscovered, putting together an inventory of the planet's oceans. The Census of Marine Life from the Antarctic to the Arctic has found many hundreds of species previously unknown to science. It all came to a glittering conclusion at the Royal Society and Natural History Museum in London this week. I spoke to the coordinator of the Antarctic section of the census, Michael Stoddart, before he left Tasmania.
We've been doing a major survey of what there is around Antarctica. In this, I was greatly assisted by the fact that the International Polar Year came along. So we were able to get something like 19 vessels that would participate, several hundred scientists on board. This has been the biggest survey of the marine life around Antarctica that has ever been done.
Michael Stoddart was Chief Scientist with the Australian Antarctic Division when the census began, and despite leaving the division 2 years ago, has continued to have carriage of it.
We've certainly discovered for the Antarctic many hundreds of species that hadn't been identified before, and that's going to take another 10 years to work through.
The Antarctic waters are incredibly biodiverse, with over 16,000 species catalogued.
The faunal richness on the Antarctic Peninsula is equal to or greater than the Galapagos.
Creatures of all shapes and sizes, from huge worms to giant sea spiders, have been captured. It's often said that we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the oceans. Is this likely to change that?
Well, it will do a little bit. The statistic I heard the other day was actually we know more now about Mars than we do about the surface of the Earth. Yes, we've had, in the census, there have been investigations going down 10,000 metres. That's higher than Mount Everest, sits above the surface of the Earth. So we've been right down to the deep trenches of the ocean, and we've done an awful lot of work in an awful lot of places that nobody has been to before. But we're still only scratching at the surface.
Working at such depths is incredibly expensive.
It can take maybe 10 hours for a grab to reach the bottom in deep waters and 10 hours to pull it back up again. And if you're looking at a charter rate of, the best part of 100,000 a day, you don't get a chance to do too many of them.
The Australian-led survey coordinated over 19 voyages involving more than 300 scientists from 30 countries.
Many, many, many new species, no question of that. A very, very great number. The largest number of new species has been found in the crustacean group, the shrimps and the prawns.
Some of the information has been used to persuade the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, known as CCAMLR, to declare 2 blocks of the high-latitude Southern Ocean as vulnerable.
One of the most interesting things we've found is that the huge current that sweeps around Antarctica has been driving species northwards. We've been able to use new genetic techniques to be able to determine the origin of species, even some species that occur quite far in the north. We can trace now their origin back to when that Antarctic current started sweeping around Antarctica. There's been some terrific work been done on octopus. Deep-sea octopus, which don't move very far as individuals, but we've been able to trace tropical deep-sea octopus origin right back to the Antarctic.
Included among the achievements of the Antarctic census is the DNA barcoding of 2,500 species and other DNA discoveries.
Are there species that occur both in the Arctic and the Antarctic? And we know, of course, that there are some big ones like humpback whales and Arctic terns, but when we did the count, we found that it was 250 or 300 species, including clams and small shrimps, and we thought that's very interesting. Let's have a look. And when we started to look at the genetics of that, we found that, in fact, they're quite different. They just happen to look the same.
As a result of species looking the same and doing the same job but being genetically different, Professor Stoddart says taxonomy, which is the science of naming animals, has been turned upside down.
We've been hard-pressed to find even a single circum-Antarctic species. what we find is that when we've got something that we think occurs all the way around Antarctica, and then we start to look at the genetics, we find really that it's a whole bunch of different species.
Professor Stoddart says the census wouldn't have happened without $100 million in seed funding contributed by the American philanthropic Sloan Foundation.
Countries are concerned with their own territorial waters, 3 miles in the case of states in Australia, or 12 nautical miles in the case of the Commonwealth. But what happens beyond that, the blue oceans, there's an awful lot of it, and nobody really has got the responsibility for doing the fundamental work. So the Sloan Foundation said, we'll put some of our money into it and see if we can get the world's marine biology community to chip in. And they certainly have, and that $100 million has leveraged probably 10 times that amount.
The threat of overfishing and global warming to the marine environment has already been well documented. This count will provide baseline data for future research.
The census altogether, taking all the parts of the world together, is going to have it's going to set a new benchmark, really, against which future change can be measured, and that's probably the single most significant outcome. One of the meetings we'll be having in London next week will be to plan the future, to think about what happens after the census of marine life, because we've just achieved too much in the last 10 years to say, well, that's it, it's all over.